Chapter 14. The Demon of Fear. Deagan's descent this time was unlike any other. There was no end, no bottom. He fell forever, spinning through a void that pulsed with colors his mind could barely comprehend. Red, green, black, white, all bleeding together into a nauseating swirl. His body twisted, bones stretching and snapping, reforming again and again as the fall rewrote him. By the time he landed, he no longer knew how long he had been falling. Seconds, hours, years. He stood on a floor of bone, slick with blood that dripped from the ceiling like rain. The air stank of copper and rot. The walls rose high around him, twisting into a maze of flesh and metal, shifting constantly as if alive. Every few seconds, a heartbeat echoed through the maze, deep, loud, shaking the walls. It wasn't his. It belonged to something bigger. The cloaked figure's voice slithered out of the walls, not with its usual calm, but with something darker. Fear is not like the others, Deagan. You cannot kill it. You can only drown in it. Deagan's voice was steady, almost dead. I've drowned 1,000 times already. What's one more? The walls responded by shifting violently, twisting into a corridor of jagged metal teeth. The lights above flickered red, casting everything into a strobe of shadows. A scream echoed from deep inside the maze, his own voice. He walked forward, slow and deliberate. The walls pulsed like veins, blood oozing from the cracks. The floor was slick, forcing him to step carefully. The heartbeat grew louder, faster. Then he saw it. At the end of the corridor stood a child, himself at age 7, shaking, crying. The boy looked up, eyes wide with terror. Dad's not coming back, and neither is Mom. Deagan froze. The child ran toward him, screaming, before melting into a swarm of spiders that crawled up his legs, biting, tearing at his flesh. He ripped them off with his bare hands, smashing them into the walls, but they dissolved into black mist and reformed behind him, crawling back. The mist whispered in hundreds of voices. You can't escape fear. You can't escape yourself. The corridor walls slammed inward, almost crushing him. He sprinted, barely squeezing through as they snapped shut like jaws. The floor cracked, dropping him into a pit lined with hooks. He grabbed onto a chain to stop his fall, swinging above the spikes as they dripped with blood. From the pit rose the first shadow, a mass of teeth and claws, eyes glowing yellow. It crawled along the walls like an insect, its body twisting unnaturally. We are the fear you've buried, Deagan. We are every nightmare you pretended to forget. It lunged. He barely rolled aside, grabbing a hook from the wall and swinging it at the creature. The hook tore through its body, but instead of weakening it, it split into 2 smaller versions that screamed and attacked. Every strike he landed made more. Every kill created more fear. The maze walls shifted again, separating him from the creatures, but as they closed behind him, he heard them crawling closer, hundreds of them now. The corridor opened into a massive chamber, a cathedral of flesh and bone, the ceiling lost in shadows. Chains hung from above, each holding a cage. Inside each cage was a version of him, screaming, crying, clawing at the bars. Their voices overlapped, deafening. You'll never wake up. You'll never escape. You'll never win. The floor beneath him rippled and the cages dropped one by one, shattering open. The versions of him poured out, crawling, screaming, eyes wide with terror. They didn't attack. They only begged him to stop. He walked through them, ignoring their screams. His eyes were cold, empty. His steps were slow, deliberate. But the begging turned to screeches, and suddenly they lunged, their hands clawing at him, their teeth sinking into his arms. He ripped them off, crushing skulls, tearing limbs, the blood covering him until he looked as red as the walls. By the time he reached the other side of the chamber, there were hundreds of bodies behind him, twitching, screaming weakly. The cloaked figure's voice trembled, almost pleased. Fear is endless, Deagan. The deeper you walk, the more it becomes you. Deagan looked up, his face expressionless. Then I'll become fear." The floor cracked, the chamber collapsed, and from the darkness rose something far larger. The collapse of the chamber seemed endless. The cages, the corpses, the screaming echoes, all fell into the darkness below. Deagan fell with them, his body twisting in the void until he hit the ground with a sickening crunch. But the pain didn't matter anymore. Nothing did. He pushed himself to his knees. The ground was no longer bone or stone, it was a black ocean, rippling beneath his hands, warm like blood. The surface reflected distorted versions of his face, each one screaming silently. The ocean bulged upward, forming a shape, the demon of fear. It rose higher and higher until its head scraped the clouds. Its body was a constantly shifting mass of nightmare, faces stretched across its surface, mouths opening and closing in silent agony. Its arms were long, ending in claws made of jagged glass that dripped with liquid shadow. Its eyes were white voids, piercing, unblinking. The voices of every fear Deagan had ever felt echoed from its body. The crash, the overdose, the screaming of Mara when you left, the silence when your father never came back. The demon's voice when it finally spoke was all of them combined, layered, distorted, and deafening. "You thought you killed fear by becoming empty, but emptiness is my kingdom." The ocean surged, waves of black liquid rising around him. The ground beneath his feet broke apart, forming jagged platforms floating above the churning water. The demon's claw swung, shattering one of the platforms and sending it tumbling into the sea of faces. The water screamed as it swallowed the stone. Deagan leapt to another platform, the spray of liquid burning his skin on contact. It wasn't water, it was liquid terror, seeping into his veins wherever it touched. His chest tightened, his breathing quickened. For the first time in what felt like forever, he felt fear creeping back in. The demon laughed, a sound that split the sky. "You feel it, don't you? You can't stop it, you can't escape it, you are mine." The sky above cracked, spilling spiders, chains, needles, every object that had ever haunted his nightmares. They rained down, embedding themselves into the platforms, tearing his flesh when they struck. Deagan grabbed a fallen chain, swinging it like a weapon. The demon swung again, but he rolled under its claw, lashing the chain across its leg. The surface tore, black liquid spraying, but instead of hurting it, the wound opened into another screaming mouth that bit at him. Every attack he made only created more fear. The platforms shifted, rotating in the void. The ocean rose higher, hands reaching up from the black waves, grabbing at his ankles. Trying to pull him under, he kicked free, leaping from one crumbling platform to the next. The demon opened its chest, revealing a hollow pit filled with swirling images, his nightmares on loop. He saw himself lying in the hospital bed, alone, monitors flatlining. He saw Mara crying over his coffin. He saw his mother clutching his lifeless hand. The images bled into his mind, weakening him. His knees buckled. The chain slipped from his grip. The demon leaned close, its face a shifting mass of teeth and eyes. "You have no weapon here. Fear is the only weapon, and it is mine." The waves surged higher, drowning the platforms. The hands grabbed him again, pulling him down into the screaming water. His chest tightened as the liquid filled his mouth, his lungs. The faces in the water crawled over him, biting, tearing at his skin. "This is it. This is how I die." The demon's voice boomed through the water. "You drown in me, Deagan. You will sink and you will never rise." The black ocean swallowed Deagan whole. There was no air, no light, only water thick with screaming faces. They clawed at him as he sank, their mouths opening wide, forcing themselves into his lungs. Every breath he took was another gulp of fear. His chest burned. His body convulsed. He sank deeper. The light from above, if there ever was any, faded completely. The water around him came alive, coiling around his arms and legs like snakes, dragging him downward into the abyss below. As he sank, the water changed into memories. One moment he was in the crash, his motorcycle flipping, the world spinning, the sound of metal tearing and bones snapping. The next, he was in Riker's apartment, watching him choke on his own vomit, unable to save him. Then he was standing outside Mara's house, seeing her crying through the window, but walking away anyway. The memories weren't just images, they were real. He felt every bone break, every scream, every ache in his heart. The demon's voice whispered all around him. "You are nothing but fear. You are made of it. You are drowning in yourself." He tried to swim, but the water turned to chains, wrapping around him tighter. His own hands reached up from the depths, dozens of them, clawing at his face, pulling him deeper. He screamed, but the sound died in the liquid. Suddenly, the water cleared and he was back in the hospital. The monitor beeped weakly, his heart rate dropping. Doctors shouted around him, their faces blurred. His mother screamed his name. Deagan reached for her, but his hand passed right through. "This is real, I'm dying." The demon took shape in the corner, still angelic, still terrifying, but now wearing his own face. It smiled. "You will not wake up. You will not escape. You will end here in the dark, forgotten." The water rose in the hospital, flooding the room. His mother vanished. Mara vanished. The doctors drowned in silence. The room twisted back into the abyss, and the demon stood above him, arms outstretched. "There is no fighting me. I am the air you breathe. I am the blood in your veins. I am fear, and I am eternal." The ocean's pressure crushed him. His ribs cracked. His vision blurred to nothing. And yet, deep inside the drowning, inside the endless terror, something moved. Not warmth, not hope. Just a spark of refusal, small but indestructible. The same thing that had kept him moving after every trial. The water couldn't extinguish it. Fear couldn't devour it. Deagan's lips curled into something almost like a grin, even as the black liquid poured into his lungs. "If fear is eternal, then I'll become eternal too." His eyes snapped open, glowing white with the same cold fire that had carried him through despair. The chains cracked. The water boiled. The screaming faces around him shattered like glass. The demon recoiled as Deagan rose from the ocean, dragging the chains still attached to him like weapons. He landed on the surface, standing on it as if it were solid. His body steamed, his eyes burning with light. The demon screamed, You shouldn't be able to stand here." Deagan's voice was calm, almost inhuman. "You wanted me to drown in fear. Fine, I'll use it." He ripped the chains from his own body and swung them at the demon. The chains glowed white, feeding on the very terror they were made from. They wrapped around the demon's leg, burning into its flesh. The creature screeched, trying to tear free, but Deagan yanked it down into the ocean. The water exploded upward, waves of screaming faces dragging the demon under. Deagan dove with it, wrapping the chains around its neck, pulling tighter and tighter. The demon thrashed, its body warping into countless shapes, each one a different nightmare. "You cannot kill fear," it roared. "I don't need to kill it," Deagan growled. "I just need to own it." With a final pull, he snapped the chains tight, crushing the demon's neck. The creature's body burst into black liquid, dissolving into the ocean. The water stilled, the faces vanished, the ocean turned to calm glass beneath his feet. The ocean of glass stretched endlessly. The sky above was not black or red, but void white, featureless and blinding. Deagan stood alone, chains wrapped loosely around his shoulders, their ends dripping faint white light. The water reflected him perfectly, except the reflection no longer moved with him. It stood still, watching. He stared back. Another trick. The reflection smiled. The surface of the water cracked outward from where it stood, spiderweb lines spreading across the endless mirror. The cloaked figure appeared across the horizon, not gliding, not walking, but manifesting from the mist like it had always been there. Its white light stared at him with something new, hesitation. You did the impossible again, Deagan. You chained fear itself. You stand where no soul has ever stood. And yet, the figure's voice trembled slightly. What stands before me is not a man anymore. Deagan's voice was cold, detached. I'm what you made me. The reflection's smile widened unnaturally, splitting its face. It stepped forward, the cracks beneath its feet spreading with every step. No, the figure said softly, you are something worse. The reflection spoke, its voice not Deagan's but 1,000 voices layered. You are empty, you are the fear that walks. The chains on Deagan's shoulders twitched as if alive, rattling faintly. His body didn't move, but the white cracks spread wider. The reflection lunged at him, its body twisting into a monstrous shape with spider limbs and a face of mirrors. Deagan didn't dodge. He raised a hand and the chains shot outward like snakes, wrapping the creature midair and crushing it instantly. The reflection shattered into shards that dissolved into mist. The cloaked figure's voice fell silent. The endless white space trembled faintly, as if even hell itself feared what he had become. Deagan looked at the figure. Are you afraid? The figure didn't move, but its voice was quieter than ever. Yes. The ground cracked violently, splitting open into jagged shards. The calm glass ocean shattered completely, leaving only a pit of white light swirling like a storm. Deagan didn't hesitate. He stepped into it, letting the abyss swallow him again. The figure watched him disappear, whispering almost to itself. He is not a soul anymore. He is a weapon, a storm that even hell may not survive. The fall this time was different. It wasn't disorienting. It wasn't endless. It was controlled. Deagan was no longer falling into something. He was falling through it, shaping it as he went. The swirling white light bent around him, twisting into patterns like veins, like chains, like the cracks of shattered glass. When he landed, he didn't stumble. He stood upright, calm. The world around him was hell's heart, a realm made entirely of fear. Towering spires of bone rose from the ground, pulsing with veins of red light. The sky was a storm of shadows, shifting into screaming faces and tearing apart again. The ground itself breathed, exhaling mist with every step he took. The moment he moved, the ground erupted. Thousands of nightmare beasts poured from the cracks, each one made of shadow and teeth. They charged him at once, screaming in distorted voices. Deagan raised one hand. The chains coiled like snakes, glowing faintly white. With a flick of his wrist, the chains shot outward, slicing through the monsters like blades. They didn't just cut them, they absorbed them, pulling the shadows into their links. Each kill made the chains glow brighter, feeding on the very fear they were meant to destroy. The beasts kept coming, hundreds, thousands. Each time he swung, they fell, the ground littered with dissolving shadows. The more he fought, the calmer he became. Every fear he destroyed, he consumed. The sky cracked open. From the storm above, the demon of fear's true core descended, a massive, writhing heart suspended by veins of shadow. It pulsed violently, releasing waves of terror that warped the landscape. The ground twisted beneath him, turning into the hospital again, then the crash, then Mara's death, shifting through every fear he had ever known. The heart tried to trap him in illusions, but they passed through him like wind. He leapt, the chains wrapping around his arms, glowing so brightly they left streaks in the air. He hurled them upward, piercing the heart. The heart screamed, not with a voice but with the sound of 1,000,000 nightmares dying at once. The veins snapped, spraying black liquid. Deagan yanked hard, pulling the heart down to the ground. It hit the ground with a quake. He wrapped the chains around it, squeezing tighter and tighter. The heart pulsed violently, its voice echoing in his mind. Without fear, you are nothing. His voice was a whisper, cold as death. I am nothing, and nothing can't be stopped. He crushed the heart. It burst in a blinding explosion of white light, the shadows burning away like ash in the wind. When the light faded, the battlefield was gone. The storm was gone. Only silence remained. Deagan stood at the center of an empty world, the chains wrapped around his arms glowing faintly. The silence after the heart's destruction was almost unbearable. No wind, no echoes, no voices, not even the ambient hum of hell. The world itself had gone still, as if holding its breath. Deagan stood at the center, the chains wrapped around his arms humming faintly, glowing white with a strange inner light. They pulsed not with life, but with something else entirely: power. The fear they had absorbed radiated out like a cold storm, bending the air around him. The ground trembled, the sky cracked. Out of the fractures stepped the cloaked figure, its movements slower than before. It no longer towered, it no longer glided. Its posture was careful, as though approaching a wild animal it could no longer control. For the first time since Deagan had seen it, the figure's voice wavered. "You chained fear, you broke it, you made it yours. No soul in this place has ever done that." Deagan's eyes glowed faintly, colorless, empty. His voice was quiet but cut through the silence like a blade. "I told you, I'll crawl through hell as nothing if I have to." The figure tilted its head. "Do you even know what you are now, Deagan? You are not man, you are not demon, you are not angel, you are." Its voice faltered. "Something new." The chains rattled faintly, uncoiling and recoiling like serpents sensing prey. Deagan's presence alone distorted the ground under his feet, cracks spreading in patterns like veins. The cloaked figure's white eyes dimmed slightly, almost in deference. "Hell was built to consume souls like yours, to break them, to hollow them out until they belong to us. And yet you stand here empty but unbroken. You are not ours anymore." Deagan stepped closer. The figure didn't retreat, but its voice grew softer, cautious. "Do you still intend to wake up? Do you still think you have a life to return to?" His voice was cold, almost emotionless. "I don't care if I wake up as a man or a ghost or a monster. I'm getting out." The figure's cloak rippled, shadows spilling from it like smoke. "Be careful, Deagan. The next trial is not like the others. You have destroyed fear itself, but what comes next?" It paused, the silence between its words heavy. "Is death not the idea, not the shadow, the real thing?" The chains twitched, glowing brighter, as if hungering for the fight ahead. The figure's tone hardened, though beneath it still lingered a hint of respect, or maybe fear. "You are strong, stronger than anything hell has ever seen, but death does not care how strong you are. Death is final." Deagan stepped closer still, standing just a breath away from the figure. His voice was barely more than a whisper. "Then I'll kill death." The figure let out a sound, half laugh, half hiss. "We will see." The ground split beneath Deagan's feet, opening not into darkness, not into light, but into a void of pure silence, deeper than anything he had faced. Even the chains on his arms seemed to recoil slightly as he fell. The cloaked figure watched him vanish, speaking to the emptiness in a voice that trembled despite itself. "What have we unleashed?"